The launch of Simply Mobilizing at the 2015 International Conference in Chiang Mai, Thailand, was a pivotal point in the history of our movement. At that conference, SMI outlined significant pathways to change, as we were far from achieving the goals of the Kairos movement, tremendous as it were, after 20 years of experience. Many of our leaders were left stunned by the changes that were announced at the 2015 conference. Following the conference, many of the SMI leadership discussions and deliberations during 2016 centered around three key areas where changes needed to take place: our message, which we now call mobiology, our messengers, now mobilizers, and our management. Now, these discussions eventually led to the decision to hold an annual GDC in Butuan beginning 2017. We realized that if we were to fully transition from a Kairos movement to an SM movement, we needed to journey with our global leaders first, create buy-in, and invite their participation to plan, communicate, and implement most of what was discussed during these meetings. Yet, up to that point, we didn't even have the global region structures that we now have. I remember a quote by Helen Keller that Brother Max used to say to us in the early days: "Alone we can do little, together we can do much." I think it was an appropriate picture of what each GDC has achieved through the years. Now, looking back now, I realize that I only saw how necessary the GDC was back then, but didn't realize how ambitious its goals and aspirations were. And that, I think, was the grace of God.
At the forefront of the GDC was the presentation of its 7-point goal, encapsulated in the Vision 2020 statement. Number 1, articulating and cascading the SM message. Number 2, establishing the SMI Center as a service provider and international office. Number 3, developing programs and courses for churches and church leaders. Number 4, developing and implementing the SM Mobilizers pathway. Number 5, transitioning Youth Kairos to Simply Mobilizing Youth and facilitating pathways for the younger generation. Number 6, establishing a post-transitional leadership and management structure. Number 7, establishing the Simply Mobilizing franchise globally through the global regions. For each GDC from 2017 to 2019, we will present and recap Vision 2020 with all our GDC participants. Vision 2020 was also shared abroad, as global region conferences were organized worldwide following the launch of the GDC. A major focus of our GDC journey has been the articulating and cascading of our theology of mobilization, which we have been calling mobiology. The strength of our mobilizing movement has always been the theology of mission we first began to promote with the Kairos course. The launch of Simply Mobilizing in 2015 was partly necessitated by the widening and the deepening of our understanding of the Bible's missional message. It became clear to us that the entire Bible was a story about God on mission, and importantly, God on mission with His people. We started to use the term mobiology to describe the call of all God's people to live on mission with God. In the New Testament, embedded in our call to salvation is the call to live on mission with God. This demands, therefore, that every local church be missional, and not just a place of nurture, but also of equipping for God's people to live a life on mission with God. So we have been producing more products, such as Interface, TUS, ETI, in order to clarify just how important this missional and mobilizing message in Scripture is. A product we are currently developing is the story of the Bible. This is an attempt to capture succinctly what exactly the missional story of the Bible is all about. What is God seeking to accomplish in and through His people by engaging us in His mission? It is our conviction that God's people throughout the world will respond in obedience to God. They will be mobilized once they know and can see clearly from the Bible, from Genesis to Revelation, what His will and purpose is. This story of the Bible program could become as significant to mobilization in this era as Kairos was in the previous era, and of course still is.
The GDCs each year have given us a great opportunity to launch a new product or a new training. For example, in the 2017 GDC, we launched Mobi 101. In 2018, we ran the Interface Seminar, and in 2019, we introduced the Mobiology Workshop. Then after each GDC, the participants would then go back to their regions and trial the new products and trainings with their NCTs in their region. It has proved to be a very effective way to introduce new materials and give new training.
By 2017, SM was already in 100 countries. It was at the beginning of the GDC that we intentionally organized and grouped these countries into 12 global regions: North America and the Caribbean, Latin America, Southern Africa, Western Africa, East Africa, Oceania, MENA, Europe, Eurasia, Southeast Asia, South Asia, and East Asia. We appointed Global Region Coordinators, or GRCs, to oversee these 12 regions to help SMI serve the needs of the countries within each of these regions, initially in the areas of coordination, training, administration, new nations, and translations. We then asked the GRCs to form two structures in their respective regions: the Global Region Team, or the GRT, and the Global Region, or GRF, with a view that these two structures, we were going to select representatives to the International Leadership Team, as we really wanted an SM leadership that is field responsive. It took us 3 years altogether to build the global region structures to this level, but by September 2020, with God's help, the ILT, now with GRC representatives, had its first meeting. The rest is now history.
One of the other great achievements of our GDC was the youth mobilization discussions and encounters. Through GDC and Bianca's leadership, we were able to meet with the different YK Global Region coordinators that were championing YK in their countries and regions. We prayed and strategized next steps, taking into account all that we had learned from the courses and interactions with young people around the world. Our sessions also covered the challenges of youth mobilization and the inspiring victory stories that we're seeing with more young people joining our teams. We were happy to see new launches of YK like MENA and South Asia, and the great sense of friendship that strengthened our team.
After the first GDC gathering in 2017, many of our global region coordinators began planning their own global region conferences. The first of these conferences was the Latin America Global Region Conference in Cancun, Mexico. That year, we had 5 more conferences in different parts: Eurasia Conference in Belarus, Southern Africa Conference in South Africa, East Africa Conference in Kenya, MENA Conference in Egypt, and the South Asia Conference in Nepal. In 2019, we had 3 more, and this was in Hong Kong for East Asia, the Philippines for Southeast Asia region, and Nigeria for Western Africa. And that's not to mention the country gatherings that also took place in various countries like Brazil and others. Now, all this were happening in a frenzy. They were really wonderful times of just learning and growing together as a family. Now, what I loved about these conferences was that they began to establish a global region of identity. And with that comes the ownership of the advancement of SM in their global region and a sense of family and accountability with one another.
Through GDC, we have heard and documented the best practices and challenges in growing SM in the country from different regions and various contexts. It has also allowed us to discuss the guidelines, the practices, and even the challenges on how we run our courses, both in person and online. Now, over the years, through the discussions in GDC, this has helped us revise our operations manual and revamp our franchise training. So all of this has helped us update our trainings and even develop other trainings that would help support the growth of the movement.
The GDC also became the bigger platform where we addressed global and common policy issues concerning franchise, royalty, and translations, among others. Now, one of the special things about the GDC was because Peter and I were able to meet our leaders and teams to address specific needs and issues, or to forge some partnership over specific projects or events. We would have all these backroom lunch and dinner meetings throughout the whole week. These meetings were, in fact, one of my highlights. In that back room, we were not worlds apart. We were family, and we were there for each other.
I remember coming here to GDC and just meeting some regional leaders for the first time. I had the opportunity of connecting with them and then reconnecting with them a year later at the next GDC. It was always exciting to see our numbers growing at each GDC gathering. It was great to see us growing in fellowship and also in stronger ties. This has continued even though now we've only been meeting for the last couple of years online.
Insane, hectic, inspiring.
Last minute changes.
Great. Nice. Exciting.
Exhausting but exciting.
Fun, challenging.
I really like, this experience has opened my heart, and to have a contact with our international perspective, our, SM mobilization experience. So that was a very good impact on me. And especially I don't remember exactly, but we have a new product we going to experience together. We learn together. We express every different regions and we share the experience. So that was a very good impact. So that was opening my eyes for our global perspective, our SM mobilization movement.
Look, I mean, obviously being part of this for quite some time has been amazing because of, just being able to observe the development that we've seen over the last couple of years. I mean, if I think we were about 10 years ago in comparison to where we are now, it's been phenomenal. So, I second what Joel says, that experience of being able to get together and, participate in training together, but at the same time to build relationships across the regions and on a personal level. There's very much a community aspect to it that I think sometimes, you don't find too much in other organizations. So it's just great to be part of that, and it's great to just be part of something that we can truly call a movement. So, yeah, I think from that perspective, that's been a really enriching process and journey. So, yeah, awesome.
Treasure is the personal contacts with the leaders and seeing the total growth of the ministry. One regret is that the East Asia region is a very small region and the participation is not that great. So we lost the time of getting together as a region in these conferences.
The impact of the GDC experience we have, one is the joy of fellowshipping with one another, meeting the different people coming from different parts of the world. It's really enjoyable. And then another thing is knowing what the Lord is doing with Simply Mobilizing internationally, and listening to the report. It really gave me encouragement. At the same time, sometimes the challenge to keep moving on. And the third is being reminded always of the very specific direction or vision of SMI. And especially when we do strategizing and how we can accomplish that vision. So that really made an impact.
I really have appreciated the GDC gatherings, whether they're in person or online, although I certainly prefer the in-person. The value has been, for me, just a larger picture of what SMI is about. We're all flung out in our countries doing our own thing, and when we gather together, we learn from each other. Not just the schedule and the agenda of things that we're to work through and the trainings that we're going to experience, but just the conversations that you have around a meal, the stories and the deepening of relationship that allows you then to kind of carry that forward between GDCs, especially for us in Canada, where we're working in a variety of languages, to be able to interact with people who are specialists in that language and be able to work on those sorts of things together. So just the connection, the deepening of relationship, and the growth. It's kind of like a giant step forward every time we're together.
For our region specifically, the GDC, we felt empowered through the GDC to go and actually accomplish that in our own regions. We felt like we were trusted. So we would first get to know the products. We got to speak about it. We also invested into new products. And then going back to our regions, we could speak from together, one mouth of the international team, but also understanding, we felt, okay, so we were trusted with this. We felt empowered. I know it was a big thing to decentralize the authority and structure. And so we felt that our region could grow. So in that way, we saw the GDC as something to go forward with, especially when it was only the DRC's meeting, not all the NCTs, but especially when it was just us together. So thanks.
As I was able to participate of the mobile workshop on the GDC 2019, I was taught to articulate the message of the different courses, and that have really helped me to train others on a global region on how to articulate it, to share it among their people. Also, GDC was key to build relations with other GRTs and GRCs, to listen to them and to learn from each other. It was so fun, and we ate lechon.